Have you ever noticed that perhaps one day you are feeling mostly regulated and okay, and then suddenly you shift into either sympathetic fight or flight, or you move towards shutdown and collapse? Have you ever noticed that that movement is almost immediately accompanied by an inner sense of judgment, shame, finding fault with us for going there? Well, you're not alone. Everybody struggles with this. And today, we're going to take a deeper dive to look at how to form a more comfortable relationship with that pattern. I'm Dr. Jeffrey Rutstein, and welcome to the Wired for Wellbeing podcast, where we view through a nervous system perspective how we interact, and that can transform the way that we live, love, and relate. Each week, I'm joined by my good friend and producer, Steve Lessard. Hey, Steve. Welcome.
Hey, Jeffrey. Hey, everybody.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm interested in this topic today because I definitely have noticed this pattern in my life, in my mind, when things switch and I start to tell some stories. So I'm excited that we're going to be jumping into this today. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Doing really well, thanks. Excited about this topic, too, because this has been something I've been facing in myself for years.
Well, Jeffrey, we're going to get into it with a question submitted by a caller, Lilith. We're going to take a listen, and then let's have a discussion about what's going on here.
Great.
Hello, my name is Lilith, and I'm a woman who has a history of multiple complex diagnoses, as well as a history of some head trauma, some trauma relating to childhood sexual abuse, and extreme bouts of anxiety, depression, isolation. Now, there are times, periods of my life where I was able to do very well and flourish within my community. So when I'm doing well, I do really well. But when I crash very big. So I guess my question is, I'm really struggling with trying to reintegrate into my community in a healthy way. But as I'm trying to reintegrate, I still deal with a lot of issues of shame. If you could provide any sort of guidance for someone who has multiple concurrent disorders, I'm trying to figure out what the best course of action is for maintained wellness so that I can actually have maintained healthy connection within my community. Because the cycle and pattern of doing well, but then burning out. So if you could provide any guidance, it would be very appreciated because it feels overwhelming as one person trying to unpack all of this.
Well, Jeffrey, I hear a lot in Lilith's question, but I think maybe just to make sure we're all on the same page, you could help our audience understand what Lilith might be talking about by these multiple concurrent disorders, just so people might be able to map their experience onto what Lilith shared.
So Lilith used in particular multiple complex disorders, which could be complex PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, complex anxiety. But when we use the word complex, it means that it's a bit more strong or significant than a less complex case of depression or anxiety, for example. But it also means that when we have one or more complex diagnoses, that's often a signal that our nervous system is very dysregulated on a fairly consistent basis. And if someone has more than one complex disorder, then they have 2, 3, 4, 5, and each of those in its own way can contribute to the dysregulation. So my sense is someone's nervous system who has multiple concurrent complex diagnoses, mental health diagnoses, means that she's been suffering from something like she said, childhood trauma, head trauma, and probably all the things that can befall us once we've been traumatized when we're younger, the way that it changes our view of ourselves and the world. So the first thing is, and she also used words for this. Lilith also talked about she's, anxious, very, very anxious at times, and then she wants to withdraw and shut down. So she's already noticing. She's going in and out. She's going high into sympathetic activation. She can go deep and down into shutdown and collapse. She's not feeling good in either of these extreme states. By the way, none of us would. So she's interested in what's the best way to help me be a little bit more middle of the road, help me reintegrate into the community and hopefully stay there longer than these current cycles of going in, really connecting, and something happening, and she gets burnt out, she has to withdraw, and she pulls away from the community. She loses connection.
Okay, so the simple question is then, how does Lilith get there? How does she begin to move towards that place that feels like it might be jumping from one state to the other a little less severely and frequently?
So the first thing is to begin to understand that we don't switch states for nothing. Our nervous system has perceived, whether it's accurate or inaccurate, it doesn't know, but it has perceived some level of threat or danger. And so it reacts by going into either sympathetic, which is a defensive state, or shut down and collapse, which is also a defensive state. So when we feel unsafe, we're going to move in those two directions, either into fight or flight or down towards shut down and collapse. So she also said something else that's very important that we need to pull in right now. She mentioned at least twice that she's aware of having very strong shame. And number one, Lilith, that's a great self-awareness to have, because I think it's playing a much bigger piece in this than perhaps you can see right now. If we have shame, it often means that when we're with other people, we'll have the tendency to want to leave ourselves, to go out and to meet our friends, to meet our community members, and to give a good impression, to welcome them. Hi, it's good to see you, and to want to be warm and engaged and likable and helpful. But if we're doing that, both because we want to do that, but also maybe a little bit or a little bit more than just a little bit of shame, if the shame is driving it, it gets exhausting after a while, because we're orphaning other parts of ourselves to continue to put this high-functioning, happy to see you, happy to do anything you're asking me to do, kind of over-accommodating part of us through the shame. But it's burning us out slow. It's making us feel more distant from ourselves. And again, we can do this for days or even a few weeks, but when it gets longer than that, if we're still slightly abandoning ourselves to be in connection with other people, and again, this is a dynamic that people with shame tend to usually do. They kind of remove them from the equation because they're feeling they're toxic or not good enough. And so I want to be all about you. I want to be all about helping you. And I want to be about, hopefully, you liking me, because then I'll feel safe. Then I'll feel welcome. So her desire to integrate is beautiful. Her desire to reconnect is beautiful. What we could ask Lilith and any of our other listeners who are identifying with this is also get curious about when Lilith is in that very, very engaged stage and she's really doing stuff and she's involved, is she feeling like she's also at home in herself? Or is she feeling like all of her energy is going outward to projects and people and purpose, and very little is coming back towards her? That's the first thing that I'd invite her to get curious about, because if that's the case, it will inevitably lead us to feel shame, because we'll feel this imbalance.
And I want to move on to the other things, but I think I want to make sure that we're offering Lilith and others, like, what is that sense when we're working from a place that's filling us up instead of a place that's giving to others? What are some things that we might recognize to help people see that pattern?
So first of all, the energy is different. If I'm working to please you, to get you to like me, I'm going to access some sympathetic fight or flight energy. I'm going to have some anxiety that you may see something shameful in me. And so my anxiety to protect myself from that would be to run away from shameful topics and run towards topics that would be less shameful. And a lot of folks with shame, the first thing they do is they'll turn questions back to the questioner. Instead of having to self-reveal so much, they will give a small answer and try to find the way back to getting the other person to do the talking because they're afraid of taking up too much space, of asking for too much, of afraid that if they have needs, have an agenda, that they will be rejected.
So like, what do you want for dinner? And the other person says, chicken. I don't know. What do you want? Is that is that an oversimplification of that?
Yes. And again, sometimes we could say anything because we really are just in the mood for anything. But sometimes we may say anything because we don't want to be difficult, because we don't want to be the one that'll be blamed. If we ended up getting pizza and the pizza was horrible because that's what I wanted, I'd rather not have that shame and that conflict. So I'm going to, whatever you want will be fine with me. And I may privately complain about it, but I won't feel shame that I picked the wrong place.
Yeah. Okay. So we unpacked the first topic of offering individuals an opportunity to look at where is this coming from that external wanting to be outside of yourself or something internal that you want. There were other steps that you wanted to offer in this trajectory that I cut you off for this tangent. So let's go back there. What's step 2?
So step 1 is just being in connection with how your own nervous system is doing things. For example, when I used to do a lot more of this, when I would be thinking about seeing people, I'd get excited and I'd have a lot of energy up. I'd have some positive, sympathetic energy going. But it was important for me to be liked or to come off well, to want to be invited back. Like my nervous system was always attuned, for better or worse, at where the other person was and trying to help them both be comfortable, but also find a way to like me. And that's lovely, except that's putting everybody else in the world ahead of me, right? It's wanting to comport myself to be pleasing, likable to the other person. And so for so many of us with trauma and shame, this is almost an unconscious habit to conform ourselves around whatever we think are the expectations in a situation or in a relationship. We try to meet those. And then there's a period of rebelling against it after we've tried to meet it and been neglecting ourselves. It builds up usually to a point where we get discouraged, maybe a little despairing. Maybe we feel like no one is really knowing us, or I'm not being honest with my feelings. And then we pull away and we withdraw.
Help me connect the thread here to Lilith's question. And I'm trying to make the connection on my own, but I'm failing a little bit. What I hear in her question is, how do I not jump between states I don't want to be in a lot? And what I'm hearing in your response right now is, where is your shame making you self-abandon? My words, maybe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
Can you help me connect? I guess I'm having a hard time connecting where we're describing the shame role with kind of what I'm hearing in Lilith's question, but clearly you're on a thread here. So help us see the thread.
So I certainly know that when any of us move into a defensive state, we're not generally thrilled about it. And it can be costly, can burden us. And I do think that Lilith, like many of us, doesn't want to go into places that we don't want to visit. I don't want to be overwhelmed and despairing. And I certainly don't want to be overwhelmingly anxious. Those are torturous places to be. But again, we want to look at this as a living, interactive system. So it's not about getting your nervous system to stop. It's really about starting with curiosity. What is my nervous system responding to? Because again, we don't move from one state to another without some level of internal or external information causing us to shift. We don't just shift because it's 5 minutes past noon, time to shift. Oh, my favorite show is on, time to shift. It's not really like that. We shift when there is something that feels threatening, or when we are exposed to something that feels welcoming, comforting, and safe. We move closer to connection when we feel the latter. When we feel tension or separation or disconnection, we just automatically pull away and move back. We do this in relationships with other people, but it also mirrors how we relate to ourselves. So that's another thing. We want to pay attention to our own experience when we're with other people. Am I, like if I'm talking with you, I may also want to check out, am I feeling like I'm here? Can I be here? Or do I feel like I'm walking on eggshells and want to make sure I only bring up topics that you will enjoy talking about? Do I feel like I can tell you about something that happened last week or something I feel vulnerable about? Or does it feel like I need to keep my vulnerability down? I should really just follow your lead, be only as light or as heavy as you are, and not introduce something that will put the focus too much on me. So if you can just listen to that, it's like someone who's kind of bound with shame has a very limited, small sense of how much space they can take up in a relationship. So I'm thinking that Lilith is, because she's sharing with us that she has a lot of shame, one of the ways that this comes out among many is the discomfort with taking up our space in a relationship, with actually having our needs or our opinions or our words or our truth. We tend to submerge them, reduce them, suppress them, so we don't cause conflict. We don't push somebody else away.
So what I'm putting together then in Lilith's experience, that the story that I'll tell is there are maybe times where she's very social and outgoing, and that feels good. And that's naturally a state that she wants to stay in. And then her nervous system bumps up to one of these moments where maybe she's abandoning a part of herself or giving herself part of away, or something else is occurring that's making her nervous system move into a different state. And you're potentially recommending to get curious about what is causing the move.
Exactly. Instead of blaming the move or blaming us for our nervous system moving, instead we get curious. And this is the piece that shifts. When I'm blaming myself, I'm not curious. I'm certain I screwed up. It's my fault. I'm inadequate. There's no room for guessing. I am locked into my negative judgment about myself. When I get curious, I suddenly can look at things from more than one angle. What is this feeling about? Why did I, instead of, oh my God, you shifted, that was such a stupid thing to do. That's just going right to judgment. I could instead go, I shifted in the middle of this discussion. I wonder why. I wonder what came up that felt somehow threatening or unsafe to me, that I needed to change the way I was interacting. And then I can go for information. Well, you were listening to Steve and you were realizing that you were feeling really bad, but you can't really tell him you feel bad because that'll push him away. So you just felt like withdrawing at that point in time. I think I'm done with the conversation. Versus tell you truth that might push you away.
I think there's a part of me that's thinking like, is that it? It seems like it should be more complex than that. I don't know. Maybe that's my own story. Lilith is sharing clearly something that she's really bumping up against and is a big thing in her life that is taking a lot of energy and a lot of focus. And she's clearly done a lot of work to understand these different things. But in the like, why do I go from here to here? It just seems like such an seemingly easy step to pause and say, what made me shift there? Like it's internal. It's not external, I guess. Like
it is simple, but not easy.
Yeah, that's the word
right?
I'm looking for.
It is simple because it's just going to curiosity. It's not easy because once we're in a defensive state, we're not curious. We actually have to generate some energy for curiosity. Like, why do I feel this way? Instead of, I feel this way because I'm a piece of crap. Instead of answering it, why am I feeling like this right now? What's coming up? What made me shift? What caused me to be, I was regulated. Now I'm incredibly anxious. I was feeling connected. And now I want to be with nobody.
And that judgment layer that comes onto it of I was happy over there and over here I'm not happy, or that was good and I was connected to people and here I'm not. I can see that judgment layer maybe pushes the two even further away.
Exactly. So I was good over here and then I turned bad. Instead of same nervous system, capable of more connection, capable of less connection, always responding in terms of inner safety needs.
How do we then deal with the piece of there are states I'd prefer to be in?
Okay, we're allowed to have those. We're allowed to have those. We all will do that. But the fact is that I'd love to wake up every morning happy as a clam. Wake up and look forward to my day and not need coffee and, and just be barreling ahead and happy. But we're humans. Our nervous systems are not meant, number one, they're not meant to make us happy. They're only meant to keep us safe. Number two, the job of the nervous system is always scanning for danger and problems. Always. So the more that we're tuned into and driven by that, the more that our perceptions will always be looking for problems, and give us enough time, we will always find them. So our moods will always shift, our states will always shift, and they're going to shift either from internal changes or contacts with thoughts, memories, feelings, judgments, beliefs, or contacting external sources of judgments, beliefs, feelings, conflict. Either of those will activate this piece.
Okay, so Jeffrey, we're giving Lilith and our listeners that clue to check into what's causing you to shift states. And then through time and practice, or maybe no time, you get some information. Oh, it's this, or I'm noticing this. Okay, so we've got the thing. What's the layer deeper? How do we start untangling that root cause?
Okay. I want to go there with you. I'm just going to take a small step to the left first and just say, I want to make sure that Lilith and our listeners here, that this pain is real. I don't in any way want to give a sense of short shrifting the pain that comes from feeling that we're not as stable as we'd like to be in terms of being able to land in one state and hang out there for longer periods of time. That's an aspiration almost all of us have. And it's really painful when we feel we're allowed in to contact and friendship and then removed from that. It can feel to us like we're absolutely out of control and we're being punished in some ways. So that being said, when we start paying attention to what causes us to shift, and I'm just going to make up a story about this, that Lilith may find that she's over-functioning a bit in caretaking, in offering energy, trying to be the best friend, best teammate that she can be. And then she may be feeling burnt, spent, depleted, maybe a bit unmet. And, if she didn't have great parents, and maybe not horrible parents, but a lot of parents were just limited in how much they could reflect their children's value. And so if you had parents, forget even trauma, if they had a hard time helping you feel a sense of safe, love, warmth, being valued and being wanted, then our own sense of self moves in and out of maybe sometimes feeling lovable and sometimes feeling unlovable. That's the shame dynamic, moving in and out. So part of it is to see how shame may be making her be a certain way with friends that's not as fully authentic with herself as she might be if she wasn't as much under the sway of shame. The more present shame is within me, the more it wants to get me to suppress me, because I'm the problem. So if I want a friendship with you, Stephen, I have a lot of shame. I'm going to want to try to keep me down, not bringing a lot into the conversation, showing you I can be a good listening friend and supportive and funny, but not necessarily letting you in the pit of my own shame or judgment. A lot of people are afraid that if I share with someone my shame, they're going to see my shame. They're going to see that I'm a fraud or unlovable or whatever it is. But I think that shame is the underlying driver for Lilith and for so many of our listeners that gets us to be how we think we should be with other people. But it involves a level of abandoning us to do it. And a different way is being deeply in contact with myself and then also being able to connect with you so that I'm here and you're here. We are here together instead of me leaping out of me to join you wherever you are and be absorbed in your feelings, your problem, your thoughts, right? And I'll be a good friend. I'll just be there. But I will have left me a bit in the background. Does that feel at all familiar to you, Steve? Have you ever seen in your life places where you might do that?
For me, Jeffrey, I notice it comes up actually with people I don't know, interestingly, that when I'm in a coffee shop and talking to somebody or trying to make small talk with somebody, I feel like sometimes I don't quite know what to share and I feel awkward in my own skin and I'm not truly the person that you probably know. So that, yeah, I never really thought about that. That immediately popped up, but that's where I went to, that in those circumstances where it's maybe not safe for me because I don't know the other person, it feels awkward. And it feels again like my skin's falling off or like my clothes are too big or something.
Right. But then we scramble and we try to find a way to be that's safer. So I imagine if you don't know what to reveal, you'll figure out a question to ask them. Come here often? Like this coffee? Instead of, I don't know what to reveal about me, so let me ask you, because that's what we'll do, right? And you may notice that in your effort to kind of find, you'll notice there'll be a little bit of sympathetic activation. There'll be a little bit of anxiety and uncertainty in the quality of the conversation. And we will move up into a little bit more activation to try to move through.
So is this why, let me start this another way.
Sure.
My sense is most people suck at small talk.
Yes, true.
I don't know what your experience is with that. And I notice it because I'm always trying to find something interesting or what about this or tell me about this. And then I realize like I'm the only one talking or asking questions and they're just telling me about their life and they're not responding questions. But anyway, whole point being, is that part of this that's under there that we're uncomfortable, or is it just more that we're not good listeners and we don't know the questions to ask other humans when we're in conversation?
I think it's a variety of things. I think for people with high shame, in general, it's easier to have someone else talk about themselves than the person with a lot of shame to talk about themselves. It feels a little too vulnerable, drawing attention to something. And the idea is that if you have a lot of shame, you don't really feel deserving of attention. So you're in this bind. If you talk more, you're getting more attention, but then you shouldn't be getting attention. You're taking up too much space. You should turn the conversation back to other people. It makes people feel uncomfortable, and it also can make them be very creative. So tell me about that trip to the Arctic that you were going to go on, or tell me about this, or did you see that movie? And again, these are pro-social. They support social exchange. It helps a relationship. But the individual who's doing this, who may be doing this as a dance to deflect intimacy, connection, authentic, felt connection, may find that this activity, this little bit of sympathetic, keeps them just above making any real contact with someone. I can be in a conversation, I can be here and I can be funny and we can be talking about stuff, right? But the depth of connection is not going to be there because I'm up here and I'm not deeply connected to me. If I'm in sympathetic, I'm sort of running in place. I'm not going to be settled. And if I'm not settled, I'm not going to be in me. I'm actually not going to be able to receive you because I'm like this. So anything that I receive from you is going to be filtered through my sympathetic activation.
It's fascinating as it relates even to going back to Lilith's question and the question you asked me. I notice that I think the times I abandon myself is when I actually feel like I need to put on a completely different persona. There are people and places that I've noticed that, like, at times I feel like I need to act differently or be more outgoing than I am, or be a different person in that environment, which, hearing you talk, it feels like I'm leaving myself a little bit to meet what
Absolutely.
the other person needs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we all do that. Lilith's question is great, because it brings us to be looking at this interaction. But I think that some of our listeners will do this as dramatically as Lilith experiences. But most of us experience this to some level when we're interacting with other people. We kind of lift up out of ourselves a little bit and are more trying to find connections and a little bit less connected with ourselves. And the less connected we are with ourselves, the more we're going to find ourselves shifting states and not knowing why, because we're not in touch with ourselves. If I'm in touch with myself, I might notice, I'm starting to get anxious here. I wonder why. I'm starting to feel like I want to pull back from this conversation. I wonder why. Instead of, oh my God, all my affect just left. I feel flat as a sidewalk right now, and I can't find any interest or even a thing to say. What happened? Well, it's because I didn't notice some of the subtle warning signs that I was getting uncomfortable, that I was noticing I was in a place that felt maybe painfully familiar, not comfortably familiar.
And then add on to that the layer of the multiple complex disorders and experiences Lilith and others are experiencing, and that just feels like that seesaw just goes so much faster.
Right. So let's touch on that, because we didn't before this. So Lilith already has a sense of shame. But anyone who has a diagnosis, mental or physical, especially if you're in a Western-oriented culture, will feel inferior, because Western cultures value health and see illness as weakness. So when someone has multiple complex diagnoses, they're going to feel more shame-worthy than someone maybe who only has one complex diagnosis. So having the diagnosis themselves, which is no sign of her badness or goodness, it's just a sign of the disruption of her nervous system. But what happens is it can further support our sense that we're an outlier, that we don't really belong. Like, none of my friends have this many diagnoses, or none of my friends do this. So it can actually amplify our sense of shame and being separate from and less than. So I do think that that's also another burden that Lilith has. And so I don't want to give any impression to Lilith that this is just a simple, easy thing to do. It takes time, it takes practice, and it takes some willingness to also develop self-compassion. Because self-compassion is our antidote neural network to our shame network. It's the only thing we can recreate or create and cultivate that actually is an antidote to shame.
I got to say, this went a different way than I thought. I didn't quite know we'd get here based off of that question, and really appreciate the wisdom and insightfulness of kind of maybe what's really going on here. It surprised me, and it maybe surprised others, but here we are. So Lila, thank you for such a beautiful question. And Jeffrey, how do others send their questions in? What if they're afraid to send a question in? What are the different ways they can send a question in? And also, where can they get a little bit more information about this work?
So we love questions, and we have a telephone line set up and devoted just to receive your questions. So if you would like to ask one, you can call 866-357-5156 and leave a question of any length. If for some reason you're calling from an international number and cannot be connected, feel free to send an email to hello@drjeffreyrutstein.com. That's hello@drjeffreyrutstein.com. And you can send a typed question, or you can drop in an audio file link so we could play it. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about the basis of this work and some practices to shift states, I have a free gift on my website that goes through the definitions of these states and models some exercises and practices you can begin right then. And to get that, you go to drjeffreyrutstein.com/links, plural, LINKS, and that'll open up a page, and one of the links there will be free gift. Just click on that, and it's yours. And as always, Steve, this is a pleasure, and I didn't know where we were going today either, but it felt interesting and good, so thank you, my friend.
Nice. Well, we got there together with a few thousand of our friends, so that was a nice journey. Jeffrey, thank you. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you next week, Jeffrey.
Great. Sounds good. Remember, friends, this podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for appropriate mental or physical health care. If you are struggling, please reach out to a qualified healthcare practitioner. Thank you for being with us. Until next time, bye for now.